Okay, welcome back to another video. We're going with a little bit of a different graphic. Okay, I'm using Gamma as opposed to Canva, just something a little bit different. I thought new year, new me, do some presentations on a little bit of a different screen. Now, it's going to take me a while because this is very basic, okay, but I'm hoping you come here more so to learn than to see my graphic design skills, because if you have, you're going to be left utterly disappointed, okay? But in this video, I'm going to talk you through the training split that I follow that keeps me in shape year round. Okay, I would say for the last year since the Ironman, this is a training style and approach I've followed. Obviously, different phases of training will change how this looks slightly, but as a whole, this is typically how it looks. Okay, so with the training split that I'm going to sort of go through, for me, it's about getting the most bang for buck and the highest return on investment. All right, so I'm just going to be following this split. It's a 3-day training program in the gym and then 2 cardio sessions each week. Okay, now those 3 gym sessions are full body, making sure to hit each muscle group 3 times in that week. And obviously the main focus is to build strength, maintain muscle mass, allow recovery, as well as obviously still training my cardiovascular fitness, more from a health and cognitive perspective as opposed to anything else. But then I can also utilize the cardio work and increase that if I'm looking to train for an event or maybe tidy up body fat percentage. It's something I'm currently doing. So 2 cardio sessions, 1 of a lower intensity steady state, so keeping my heart rate a little bit lower, 1 of a little bit more of a higher intensity where I'm trying to work towards a higher percentage of the maximum heart rate. Okay, nice and simple, and it's basically just a system that I can follow year round, and I can push and pull depending on the phase I'm currently in. Okay, it's allowed me and will allow me to stay lean, build strength, and obviously not spend all hours of the day in the gym, because I've got other things that I wish to do. Each of my gym sessions will take me roughly around 60 to 75 minutes. The cardio session, the low intensity steady state, is around 30 minutes, and then the other session is probably around about 45 in terms of the work. So you can see less than 5 hours a week, or well, roughly 5 hours a week, and it's going to allow you to obviously stay on track and build a physique that you want. Now, one plus with Gamma, I had a field day playing around with AI images. Yeah, I just said, put me a man doing a deadlift of 200 kilos. That's what it's done. But like I say, you're not here for the graphic design, you're here for the education. So let's break down the strength training. Okay, so I would typically structure Monday, Wednesday, Friday, nice and simple, with my full body workouts. Okay, so full body 1 on a Monday, full body 2 on a Wednesday, full body 3 on a Friday. Okay, and each of those, like I say, has a main movement pattern in that session, or a main focus, which then will have the bulk of the session, and then I'll go into some more accessory work, etc., etc. Now, with the warm-up, okay, I'll go in, I'll do a little heart raiser. It might be on the bike, it might be on the ski erg, it might be on the rowing machine, just something that replicates and gets me moving the key muscles that I'm going to be using in that session. Okay, as well as obviously firing up my central nervous system before I go into the main workout. Okay, accessory work is focused on both balance, joint health, areas of sort of muscles I'm trying to improve upon or try and get a little bit stronger, and then the isolation stuff is more focused around single joint movements and maybe some pump work, i.e. bicep, tricep, side lateral raises, etc. Every session takes around 60 minutes, not under, because obviously the warming up and stuff I don't like to rush. But again, if you're short for time, you probably get around 60 minutes. Okay. Now, my goal is not just to train as hard as I can, because that's something I've done in the past and it just fried me. Like, I would train. I remember once doing a leg day, probably 2019, and I trained that hard. Must have done that. I had to call in sick up for work. It was a hack squat, leg press, split squats, leg extensions. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't doing tons of sets. I was just taking every set to failure and just giving it my all. And yeah, I ended up going into work and coming home. So that's not what I want now, because that's not productive. Albeit back in the day, working in a gym like David Lloyd, 19, 20, I could half get away with it. Whereas now I've got a lot more going on, which is not what I want. Okay, I want to be able to get the most out of the least amount possible, and obviously maintain my physique so I can continue to obviously improve the way I look. So that brings me confidence. It helps me with everyday parts of life, and obviously being a coach that I am. So that's the main focus, and obviously still trying to implement some form of progressive overload, as we should all be doing. Now, the structure of each strength session, this is obviously just a rough sort of template, because I'm going to be giving this whole training program out. All you need to do is comment full body below, or you can DM me on Instagram at @jackcraddock_training full body, and I will send this program over to you completely for free. But each of my strength sessions, they're clear. It's a repeatable structure. Make sure I'm covering all bases and getting the most from my time in the gym. Okay, so like I've said, heading to the gym, heart raiser, using some form of cardio equipment. I'll then do some mobility work, some prep work to basically allow me to get ready internally, externally, musculature and central nervous system. And this main mobility prep will be based upon the main movement. So if I'm doing a deadlift, I'll probably look to work or mimic a form of hinge variation before I go into that exercise. Okay, then I'll perform some warm-up sets prior to my working sets. Now, with my compound exercises, I will typically go between 2 and 3 working sets, and that's going to cover anywhere from 5 to 8 reps. Okay, typically I won't go below 5 repetitions, just because risk of injury is going to be very high. The challenge of getting 3 reps is very difficult, and for me, I'd just rather an extra couple of reps from a safety perspective. Then my accessory work and isolation-based movements are more in a hypertrophic range. What a wonderful word! And that's sort of 10 to 15, and around again 2 to 3 working set, dependent on what muscle group it is, and if it's something I'm trying to improve upon. So a session will look like obviously walking, mobility, warming up, etc. Probably take me sort of 15 minutes. The main lift, compound work, that might be a squat variation, so it might be like a hack squat. It could be a deadlift variation, like a barbell IDL. It could be some form of overhead press. It could be some form of chest press, a row, a pull-up, anything like that, where that's the main move of the work. That's the main focus, okay, for me. Doing it at the start, I've got the most amount of energy, most amount of cognitive ability as well to give it my all. That is what comes first. After that, I'll then typically do some form of a superset, some accessory movements. So that could often be like a push and a pull, or an upper and a lower. So, for example, it could be something along the lines of a single arm lat pull down and a hamstring curl as a superset, and the main movement of the session might have been a flat dumbbell bench press, for an example. So I've done the main push, and then I'm doing some pull accessory work, or it could be a push and pull movement, which could be something along the lines of a seated non-back supported dumbbell shoulder press into a gorilla row, for example. Okay, you get the gist. Isolation work, this will be focusing on some smaller muscle groups. This could be some like arm work, some delt work, medial head delts, calves. It could be some adductors, abductors, core, anything like that. Would sort of be the 15 to 20 minute mark, because again, it might be 2-3 exercises there. An optional finisher. At the moment, I'm using this for some forearm work due to nursing a slight injury, but here you could add in, if you've got some niggles or some things you're trying to improve upon, this is where you could look to do that. Okay, nice and simple. Now, everything I do is tracked. I use a logbook or an app on my phone, so I know, right, what weights have I used and what do I need to do next week to try and improve that and add that form of progressive overload, whether that's from reps, load, or anything else. But they're the main metrics that I usually track. The role of cardio. So that's the strength stuff. The role of cardio, like I've said, isn't necessarily, in my opinion, just for fat loss. Okay, it's a key pillar on how I stay athletic to a certain degree, mobile, and also just clear-headed. Okay, I find cardio brilliant for the mind, whether it's a all-out high-intensity session, I feel fantastic after, or a low-intensity steady state where I might put a podcast on or just have a bit of time to myself whilst doing an easy run or something on the bike. At the moment on the bike, just because running over here in Saudi Arabia is not ideal, purely down to the fact of I'd have to drive 15 minutes to then run, and then drive back, which is just a bit of a ball ache, because with running, I love the fact you just can put your shoes on and head out. Okay, so at the moment I'm using the bike. Also a couple of recovery issues and the heart rate not being in a very good position either. But like I say, I'll do some lifts, bike, zone 2, and obviously outdoor runs. But zone 2 training is fantastic for heart health, brilliant for recovery, obviously helps increase expenditure also, and it just gives me that little bit of a reset. So they're very, very good, and one that is good for the mind, like I say. Normally 30 to 40 minutes, depending on sort of what it is that I'm trying to do. At the moment, more towards the 40 minutes because I'm in a mini cut, so it's only helping me increase expenditure. The other cardio session that I do is more high intensity work. Okay, so a little bit more of the anaerobic system and work towards that higher heart rate percentage. And also great just to mentally push myself. This is talking erg work, things like wall balls, you've got sort of like burpees, that sort of stuff I've included recently, just something a little bit different. And it's something that we do in the gym that I'm working at on a Saturday. So I don't want to be slacking. I want to make sure I'm up there with some of the big boys. So again, great to increase expenditure. And typically as well on a Saturday, I'll have an off-plan meal. So it sort of falls hand in hand. And a good way of challenging myself mentally, I do have to say. In terms of how a weekly training split looks at the moment for myself and how I would go about this is typically what it is. Full body 1, full body 2, full body 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Low intensity, steady state on a Tuesday. High intensity on a Saturday. Thursdays and Sundays are rest days. Okay. Now you could do something along the lines of your list cardio could be a game of paddle, or it could be a run club, or it could be Brazilian jiu-jitsu, whatever it is. Obviously something that is low intensity, i.e. from a heart rate perspective. Okay, your HIIT cardio could be a class. You might do a high rocks class at a gym or whatnot. Okay, this doesn't have to be structured that way. I just find from my recovery demands that after 3 days, I like to have a rest, and then I'll have 2 days, and that high intensity cardio is pretty tough, and it gives me a rest on a Sunday. But again, find what works best. However, I would look at managing your recovery, because that's going to be a key pillar. Training principles I live by and I go off, okay, no matter the split or the phase. Like I say, as a system that I keep in place that allows me to move the needle forward and progress dependent on the phase that I am in, okay. Non-negotiables really, and it's how I train and sort of what I try to instill with my clients. So a few things: train with intent. The aim is not to just go through the motions and tick off the fact you've been to the gym, which lots of people do. It's a case of every session having some form of purpose and implementing some form of progression. Reps, increasing load, execution, etc. All right. Track your progress as well. Okay. Log your sets, your weights, the reps you use, especially on the compound stuff, like your isolation, like the weight you use on a cable bicep curls. And I wouldn't track it personally, but on those big compound movements and some accessory work, I want to know what weights did I lift last week, so I know what I need to improve upon this week. Okay, and I can tweak things. If I'm noticing no progress, something might not be quite right from a recovery, from a nutrition, or from a programming element of things. Recovery prioritized. Okay, training hard can be easy, all right, but recovering is where a lot of people fall off, especially when it comes to sleep, dealing with stress, hydration as well. You know, morning, wake up, hydrate. Always having a big bottle of water by your side will help a lot, okay? Because you can only train as hard as you can recover. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing that recovery. Don't chase fatigue, okay? This is something I see a lot of people do. They just try and go and absolutely bury themselves all the time, okay? The goal is not to leave the session sweating loads in your Apple Watch telling you you've burnt 500 calories. The goal is to improve and get better. If you're doing a low intensity, steady state cardio session, the goal isn't to do 30 minutes all out PB on a run. Okay. The goal of that session is to keep your heart rate where it needs to be to get the outcome that session is in there for. All right. So think about that progression over just burying yourself and chasing exhaustion. And then consistency over perfection. Okay. Every week is going to be different. Or even for myself. And I have a lot of time because obviously I'm in control of my time, but not everything goes according to plan. Last week, first week of January, I was buzzing to get back into the swing of things, had man flu. Not ideal, but I still did my sessions. I didn't do any cardio. I just increased step counts. It's a lot less impactful. Obviously it can help with recovery. Perfect. And I controlled what I could eat. All right. So show up, because that will build the discipline that you want and need to obviously make fitness and all of this a part of your lifestyle. Now, when it comes to common mistakes that you want to avoid, okay, there are a few things that I definitely see and obviously have spoken to lots of people about when it comes to potentially why they're not where they want to be. Number one, hopping program to program. Okay, I've been guilty of this myself in the past. Okay, but you want to pick a plan and give it enough time to work. All right, 8 to 12 weeks at least. Reasons why is because it's going to take you probably 2 to 3 weeks to get used to the skill requirement in order to perform an exercise with the execution that we want, and also set the baseline numbers and get a real feel for what intensity actually is. If you're chopping and changing, 1 week you do a flat bench press, the next week you do an incline, then you do a Smith machine, then you do a flat bench press again, then you do a machine. It's just all over the place. You're not really tracking if you're getting stronger, which is obviously one of the key drivers behind hypertrophy. So stick to a program, give your body the time to adjust, and then implement that progression that we want. Neglecting recovery, okay, more isn't always better. As you might have seen, I definitely favor a more lower volume approach. You know, there's people that might do sort of 4 or 5 sets per exercise. I definitely prefer the 2 to 3. Mentally, if I know I'm only doing 2 or 3, I can give it my all. Whereas if I'm doing 4 or 5, it's quite hard to stay in that set or across those sets. If you're always sore or tired, that doesn't mean it's necessarily great. You're probably not recovering as well. And we want to make sure that we can recover so we can train hard the next session. So we want to fix that. So recovery needs to be prioritized. You're not tracking your performance or how you're going about your day. Now, these metrics, like what you track, can be measured. Okay, so if you're tracking your sleep, body weight, performance in the gym, stress, wicked. The more you track, the better. If you're not tracking anything, you're just sort of guessing. Neglecting cardio, again, been there before. Thought cardio was the enemy, but it's not. Okay, cardio is fantastic from a performance element, but also from a health and mental capacity. Okay, so something I would keep in year round. It might well be that you do just your 2 list training sessions per week, because that's something that's more sustainable, or whatever else. So you might do 2 lots of HIIT because you're training for a high rocks or some form of event. And that all or nothing mentality. Okay, life gets in the way, you miss a session. Don't think, oh, I'll quit. What's going on? This is awful. I can't complete the rest of this week. It's only Tuesday. Just adjust. Okay, if you've missed a session, look to just maybe do it later on in the week, or don't worry about it. Make sure the rest of your sessions you do it as well as you can, and make sure that next week you have the process in place to make sure that session isn't skipped again. Nice and consistent, because consistency over time will always win. Okay, so there we have it. That is a little bit about obviously current training split, how you go about it, and how you can structure it to help you stay in shape year round. Okay, not just stay in shape as well, but feel good, have energy, and obviously just be the highest operating system you can be. Okay, so what I would be looking to do is block out training days using this framework. So each week you know what days you're training and what you train on those days. 3 strength sessions, 2 cardio sessions, track data, sleep, recovery, your sessions, etc., and stay consistent over a long period of time being the main one. Okay, now if you want the full body training program that I've got, there's 3 strength sessions, 2 cardio workouts in there. Comment the word full body below, or you can drop me a message on Instagram, Jack Craddock Training, and I'll send it over completely for free. All right, so if you have enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Fingers crossed I can improve the graphics, but until then, I'll see you with the next video.